Hi everyone. I'm back after wow, seems like several months. Winter came and winter's still here. It's still snowing here. Well, it started snowing again, and Chinese New Year's over. We're back to work, and we started the Year of the Monkey, and it's been really exciting. I got a lot of design entries for the design contest for the wrappers for 2016, and I'm gonna choose those and post those the results of the winners on our blog. So check for that in the next couple of days. There's some amazing designs. I still haven't made up my mind. Um, but I just wanted to kind of look back on the year 2015 and actually a customer asked me today what kind of teas I like to drink, and that's really hard when I'm not evaluating teas. I guess I'm always kind of evaluating teas when I'm drinking them. But I do tend to drink teas that I want to drink according to the season and according to how kind of what I'm interested in. So I thought today, while it's snowing, what better time to drink some ripe teas? And I'm gonna do little short reviews of three of the Year of the Goat ripe cakes that we produced under the Yunnan sourcing label. So bear with me again, and I'm reviewing my own teas, but I'm gonna do that anyways. So. And the first one, well, I'll give you a little. This is I just call this Year of the Goat Monghai ripe cake, and this is a blend of from one fermentation batch, but it's a blend of Tuji grade, which is the second smallest leaf next to Gongting, and small Chato, which are the little nuggets that congeal during the wet piling process. And each of them has its own character. I really like to drink this tea. I drink this tea a lot because it's really mellow, but it's still complex. It's not boring. It's a really just this like a pleasure tea to drink for me. Um, the other tea that we're gonna drink is the Green Miracle, and the Green Miracle is a Yongde area. Yongde County is in the very southern part of Lincang, and I believe it borders Myanmar to the south. This is ripe tea that's made from a wild arbor. Not super old, but less than 100 years, but more than 50 years old tea bushes growing in that area, and natural. This, like all the productions from Yunnan sourcing, they've all been tested in a lab. So these have all passed EU MRL. I'd consider them as safe to drink as any teas, safer to drink than most teas, and probably a lot safer to eat than non-organic vegetables or fruits. So, and a lot of these teas have actually not only passed EU MRL, the maximum residue limits for pesticides, but many of them have actually gotten perfect scores, which means no detectable residues. So I'd consider them to be safe and healthy. This is the other cake, the Yang Lohan, which is the Yang Lohan in Chinese basically means goat arhat. And arhat is, I believe, another word for the bodhisattva, but I'm not entirely sure. In China, they have whole incredible temples where you go in and they have all the famous the arhats. There's like 40 or 50 something arhats that achieved Buddhahood, and there's these incredible statues. Some are made out of stone, and painted. I think most of them are made out of wood and are painted and are very lifelike. And when you walk through, and they all have their own special powers and their own. It's a really incredible tradition in China to pay homage to the arhats and those that achieve Buddhahood. This wrapper design is really cool by Ronald Visser, the Netherlands, and I call it Goat Arhat. So, anyways, let's get started. I'm going to try to do this pretty fast. I'm going to use a really small gaiwan here. I am going to weigh the tea so that I get a consistent, And I think I'm going to do 4.5 grams. This gaiwan is pretty tiny. There we go. So again, we're going to start out with this one. And, if you have any questions, please leave some, in the comments, and either in YouTube, or I'll probably post this on Reddit as well. So feel free to ask questions or comment. Again, I'm going to try to go through these pretty fast. And actually, I'm going to forego the chahai. That's one of the cool things about using this gaiwan and this cup. You can see they're basically about the same size. So there we go. I'll do a little wash on this. I do, especially on these teas that I know real well, I do sometimes drink the wash. Even with the wash, the wet pile taste isn't really that strong. This is a fermentation batch or wet piling batch that was done in 2014, and then we pressed it in 2015. So the wet pile taste isn't overwhelming, and I think part of it is Tuji grade, like the small leaf size, the fermentation taste in those leaves is always less. It tends to lose the wet pile fermentation taste faster. And Chateau, actually, because of the high degree of fermentation or composting that it occurs when they congeal and stick together, those always tend to be really smooth as well. So this tea, I would say, it's really quite smooth. Tea soup is pretty dark, not cloudy, maybe a tiny bit. And that'll change with age. This to me just tastes very typically Monghai. I know that's kind of a confusing term, typically Monghai, but if you have drank other Monghai teas, like from Xinghai, Fuhai, Monghai Tea Factory, Dai, you're going to find that there's some similarity. There's a little bit of almost like betel nut nuttiness to it. There's a very sweet, thick aroma. I wouldn't say it's camphor. It has a little bit of that. I always have a really hard time describing the taste of teas because, partially because in China, when I'm in China and I drink these teas, and I learned a lot drinking teas with other Chinese people, they don't talk about, this tastes like leather and tobacco and mushroom, and there just isn't that culture of referring to teas as having flavors. And there's this trend I've noticed on some wet tea websites that I've seen, and it's okay. I'm not criticizing it. I just conceptualize it differently, where you can sort by flavor, So that for me is kind of hard because I just don't. There's flavor, but it's really hard for me. It's really hard to say because I find that the flavors that are coming out of pu'er and a lot of teas in general are just. Sometimes I'll find that there's some relationship with like food or fruit or things like that. There's a fruitiness and sometimes there's a floweriness, absolutely. Um, but I don't always pick up on things like other people do, and maybe it's just the way my brain works. So pretty strong, thick. Um, you can see that. I just poured some tea on my keyboard. Oops. But yeah, it's quite a dark tea. But I just find that it just kind of glides down the throat. I've always felt like this tea, I can drink it on an empty stomach. Um, I feel like part of that's the fermentation or wet piling level when they wet pile it, when they turn it into ripe pour, is medium, maybe even medium. I'd say it's about, if 50% is a medium level of fermentation, I'd say this is maybe 60%. A lot of fermentation, so the less fermented ones, like a 30% or 40% fermentation level, tends to preserve more of the raw character, the sheng character of the tea, whereas this one is really, it's really very much a ripe tea. Um, and Will it age? Yeah, it'll age. Maybe not past 10 or 15 years. After that, the difference in taste would come more from the ambience of the storage as opposed to the fact that the tea, you know, the taste, the further aging 10, 15 years out could happen, but it wouldn't be nearly as dramatic. And in fact, the first few years, you're going to see the most dramatic changes with this tea. So this is absolutely a drink it now tea. Um, and I think that's kind of was originally the whole point when they created ripe pour back in the 70s, was to create a ripe tea that you could, to create a tea that you could drink now, as opposed to having to age a sheng cha for years and years and years. So in that sense, I think this is very much a traditional Monghai tea. It's very much a traditional ripe tea, and but it has complexity. You feel it in the throat. You get a little, chachi. It's a very comforting tea. In fact, one of my friends came over the other day, and he'd been working, and not really getting enough, not getting restful sleep, and we drank this tea together, and he said, this is really good. This is the first time I've actually felt like, like calm, but alert and good. And it's basically, he says about basically the first time in all week that he felt good from drinking this tea. So I really like to drink this tea, and I find that it's a feel-good tea. It's very clean, it's very pure, and it's really enjoyable. The wrapper's beautiful. This was designed by a guy in France who's actually helping me work on the new version of my website. I might mispronounce his name. It's either Michael or Michael Jourdain, and really lovely wrapper, and I really like his work. So yeah, check this out. It's pretty cheap too, $18. You can't go wrong with that. I would encourage you to try it. Anyways, I'm plugging my own teas. I get to do that. So I'm actually going to do one more steep of this while I the next tea we're going to drink is the Green Miracle. And again, this is Yongda area wild arbor tea. It's a very much a Lingtang tea. It's tippy, and it's got a lot of complexity. It's actually been, I would say, probably the most popular of the three teas that we're drinking in terms of sales. People have really gotten into this. It's 250 grams. It's $20, so it is a little bit more expensive. And the quantity is, I think we only produced, I want to say 150 kilos total, or is it 100? I don't remember. But the quantity is less. And it's definitely one of those teas that I think is going to sell out sooner than later. There's the last steeping of the Year of the Goat Molahai that we've been drinking. I'm going to get 4.5 grams here. A little bit too much. The other thing I've noticed with these electronic scales and the ones that we sell is when you if you put something on there, sometimes you'll want to, if you add like a tiny little bit of tea to it, you'll want to jiggle the container that you're putting the tea in on the scale to get it to reread again, because sometimes it won't. But if you move it just a little bit, the scale will correct the weight perfectly. So we're at 4.5 grams here. I could have gone more with this tea. It'll go, 7, 8, 9 steeps or more. That Chateau really delivers a lot of infusibility. So, yeah, there's a little bit of, if I brew it stronger, there's a little bit of vegetal, shung taste in there still. You can definitely taste it, and that's really what's behind any good ripe tea. What's giving it something that's making it something other than just fully digested, sweet, dark liquid is that shung energy. So, I had the gas over here running, and it was just not on flame. So, but there's no explosion, so I think we're good. Anyways, waiting for the water to boil. We are going to drink the Green Miracle. I'm actually just going to put it right in there. There's a couple of tiny dregs of the previous tea in there, but I don't think that's going to make any real difference in the taste. So, just to kill some time while waiting for the water to boil, we are headed back to China first week of March to start with the purchasing. I have been hearing from a lot of the growers that we work with that, in fact, the tea trees have survived the freeze. They seem to be a little bit slower in sprouting and growing the leaves, but in fact, things are going to be proceeding normally. Perhaps there won't be a bumper crop. Spring is often not a bumper crop anyways because it experiences a lot of dryness. It's been dry, it's been sunny, it's been cool. So far, we're kind of expecting that that the quality of the teas should be pretty good, if not above average. Of course, there's a lot of different microclimates in Yunnan and even southern Yunnan, Lincang and Dehong, and different parts of Lincang and Wuliangshan up in Jingdong and Sichuanban, Yiwu. So there's all these different areas, and again, every year everybody says, "Well, I heard that spring, 2015 there was too much rain and the da 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 da." And it's like, well, I just don't even look at it like that. I just take it on a case by case basis. I drink the teas. I get the teas, from the various growers that we deal with, and I just judge them based on the quality alone. So, you can't put too much stock into the weather in Yunnan. I mean, that's like saying the weather in, California. I'm sure it's snowing in one part of California right now, and there are people at the beach in another part. So, Yunnan is equally, if not more, variety in its weather than California or the West Coast or the Southwest or the Northwest. So, again, I judge the teas based on the teas themselves, not on the weather or the season. And I would really encourage you all to do the same because, there are general trends, but again, there's this valley, that valley, and there's differences between the climates and the teas and the processing, which makes really all the difference in the outcome. So, okay, we're gonna do a little wash here on Green Miracle. Not getting too much aroma right yet. Sweet. It's still not really open yet. It's still just kind of a mass. I did a real short rinse. Wipe off the keyboard here. There's like a voluminous, like creaminess to the tea. And hey, Lucy, what are you doing? Do you see something out there? Anyway, that's Lucy. She managed to get herself off the couch. So this tea has like a creaminess and like a, kind of like a Golden Needle White Lotus style ripe. It has that. I noticed that really. A sweet. Let's steep it a little longer and get this tea to uncompress. But again, I think a lot of it is because this tea is really quite tippy. And I bought it like this. It wasn't graded. I think some of the more coarse leaves were removed. The chato was removed. But it wasn't like a blend of different grades. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's quite, it's quite tippy. And the in and inside and out is the same. A lot of tea factories will they'll have all the different ripe tea graded, like Gongting, Teji, Yiji, Sanji, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, sometimes they'll grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or sometimes it'll be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then chato or various size chato. And then what they'll do is they'll blend they'll put the tippier stuff on the face of the cake to make it look prettier. And then they'll put the more coarse, larger leaf material kind of in the middle. We've done that on a couple of cakes. I typically don't really like to do that because then it's confusing because you drink one part of the cake and it's a little subtly different from the other part of the cake. With Green Miracle, it's all kind of really tippy material, but not tiny tippy. There's actually some pretty large buds in there, which is kind of nice. That was kind of a long steep there, so we'll get a real strong sense of the tea right now. Yeah, smelling a little bit of something almost chocolate, like if you dropped a couple cubes of chocolate into a mushroom soup. I am actually getting that. I'm trying to be more creative with how I drink the tea. In China, it was hui gan, liu gan, xiang qi, yun wei, all these kind of terms that Chinese people use, and they're useful, but they're not the same. Really thick, pungent. It just kind of sits in the mouth, like you kind of feel like you want to. When you do this, it moves it around as if you were masticating food. This is a real strong tea. In terms of taste, there's still a lot of shungness to it. I would say this is probably about a 40% degree of fermentation or wet piling. In Chinese, they'd say 四川熟, which means 40% ripened. So it's definitely on the lighter side, and you still have a lot of that power. There's a little bit of like slight sourness to it, and that's again because of its young age and the fact that it's in fact still got a lot of shung character. I do can't recommend enough these little gaiwans. They're 60 milliliter gaiwans. We sell them on the side. They're a few bucks for single sessions. If you just want to power through a bunch of teas, or you just drink it by yourself, or you just want to pour directly into the cup, just boom, boom, boom. It's really easy. Wow, this tea is really strong. That second steeping that I just did, this is the third, but the second steeping I did really opened it up, and we're just getting the full, heavy weight of it right now. It's very much like in the mouth and in the throat. I can tell you right now that if I didn't just go on to another tea after this, that I could just sit here and taste this tea for, a good half an hour in my mouth. There's definitely almost like a chocolatiness to it, for sure. Yeah, creamy, kind of thick, sweet aroma. The aroma's a little bit, everything's a little bit muted. The aroma's a little bit muted for all these teas today because I think it's probably not even 60 degrees in my house because I didn't, I didn't bother to load up the wood stove. But just one more time and then we'll head on because we're running out of time here. They say, don't make your videos too long. Well, I have to make mine at least longer than the TDB videos because those are like 25 minutes long. I just watched the TDB video with James comparing Little Walk, White to Tea's Little Walk with the verdant trio of ancient tea trees. And if you haven't seen that yet, you might want to check it out. I haven't actually tried Little Walk, but it sounds pretty good. I'm kind of curious. Maybe White to Tea will send me one. I won't review it, but I'll drink it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is just a thick, multi-layered tea. It really just sits here, and it just talks to you after you drink it. There's a lot going on. I'm getting like the mouth-watering stuff, which I get with Sheng Cha. So this is very much a tea that can be enjoyed like a raw pu'er. For those of you that like raw pu'er and are open to drinking ripe pu'er, but are skeptical or bored by the more traditional ripe flavors, this might be a good one for you because it really has that strong mouthfeel, and the Chinese would call it liugan, which is the staying in the mouth taste, and it has that. It's very pungent, very thick. I'll be right back. I'm going to fill this up and keep going. Okay. This reminds me a little bit of the 1999 Huayan cake that we have, the Huayan Jing cake, which is a half fermented cake. In Chinese, they call it ban fa xiao, and so these are sheng chas that have been wet piled, but for much less time. I believe only about 20 days. There was another one that we used to sell, the Pu-erh one, a 1999 and then a 2006, both of which are sold out. It's a type of tea that really is rarely done anymore. But I think because they favored going a little bit further, but keeping it very light and turning the pile a lot to make sure that the temperature doesn't go too high. They've changed the process a little bit to make teas more like this, with about, between 35 and 50% fermentation level. So this reminds me a little bit of that. It's still really just this experience here. And, like if you erased my memory and I woke up right into this right now, there's a fair chance that I would say that I had just drank a sheng cha or a raw pu'er. So anyways, Green Miracle, thanks to the folks in Yunnan who grew this tea and did the fermentation on it. It's really excellent. It's really exciting to see these outlying regions that were previously making not so good ripe pu'er making really excellent ripe pu'er. It's exciting. So next, let's get this cleaned up. The water's jumping out of the pot like that. That's definitely not how you want to brew your tea. Whenever you boil water, you need to make sure that the water is, once it's boiled, the full rolling boil needs to come to a stop before you pour it over your tea. This can scald the tea, but it's also, maybe it's just a little esoteric, but I think from what I understand, that has a real negative impact on the energy of the tea and the water itself. Also, you shouldn't overboil it, and it's advantageous to not have to keep reboiling it if possible. I do sometimes, and that's why I'm using this smaller anti-boiler today, so that we're running out of water before we run out of heat. So let's see if I can't get 4.5 grams in here, and we can just go to the last tea. So a little bit about Yang Lo Han, or the goat are hot. Bring it up here for you so you can check it out again. Yang Lo Han, or goat are hot, is a blend of tea. And let's see if I can't remember what the blend is. I'm not sure I want to tell you, but I will. And I'm only going to mention in this video. This is a blend of 2013 Yunnan tea, and a blend of what we just drank, Green Miracle. And it's not a 50-50 blend, I will tell you that. But it's a blend of two different teas and two different Yunnan teas. So, and this tends to have, it's a very powerful tea. There's no doubt about it. I've had people tell me that they drank it and they got a little bit of, their stomach was a little bit, a little tight or whatever. And that's probably because it's a very powerful tea. And very similar to sheng cha. But it's also very complex and very enjoyable. And this is a tea that I would say is a tea that could be aged. Should it be aged? Well, yeah, it should be aged, but does it have to be aged? No, it doesn't have to be aged. I'm kind of the mind that pretty much most teas don't have to be aged. There's a lot of kind of plantation teas out there that young, sheng, raw, pu'er plantation teas that kind of need to be aged to be drinkable. But again, I don't think that you absolutely have to. It just makes it easier to take. Ripe pu'er can be like that too, but I find that ripe pu'er is much less harsh even in its young age. So again, this is a wash. Let me get a little bit of smell here while I let the cup cool. There's a little bit of like wood, real woodiness to it. No smokiness. Sweet. A little bit of like longan, dried longan fruit, kind of syrupy heaviness to it. I wish Danny was here so he could comment on what he experienced when he smells this tea. I love his descriptions. This has that viscosity and that creamy taste that Green Miracle has, but there's like a woody camphorness notes to it as well, and that's from the other tea. That's the wash. I'm gonna keep going here. See if I can't get this tea to open up. So for 2016, we already have some teas, some ripe teas that we have acquired and will press in 2016. We've got a Mengku Dahusai Wild Arbor ripe, which we acquired and is really a strong tea. Actually, the fermentation was done in a small batch, about 3,000 kilos in Monghai. So our friend in Dahusai actually took the tea to Monghai to have it done by a fermentation master there. We also have a wonderful, another Yongda tea, which is a 135 combination, leaf grade combination. That's going to be a nice tea. We're going to press, and there's going to be others as well. Those are the only two right now that we have, and we may do a blend of some previous year's teas. Like we still have some of these raw materials from 2015 we may blend with some of the 2016 ones. I find that blending ripe teas together can really be a lot of fun, and you could try it at home too. If you have two teas that you like and they're different, you could try taking 50-50 of one or 1/3 of 2/3 of another, and blend them together and see if they don't become something more interesting and complex. Wow. That has almost like a whiskey type edge to it, It just kind of really thick, really, really thick, and I'm actually liking this better than the Green Miracle right now. Heavy but viscous and voluminous, pungent. Let's keep going. That was a real surprise, and actually I haven't drank this tea for several months, which is really nice to get back to it. And it's really changed since we pressed it. I feel like the two teas that are in it are more commingled or coalesced together as one tea now than when we first pressed it. And maybe that's because one of them was a 2013, the other one was a 2015. So one had a little bit of dui wei or wet piling taste, while the other one didn't, and that tended to create this lopsided feeling with the tea. Now I'm finding that much less that wet pile taste in the 2015 tea, the Green Miracle material that we've put in here, is actually less at the forefront. It's still there a little bit, but it's not overpowering. So the teas tend to be more of one tea rather than two teas now, which is the whole point in terms of from the standpoint of the drinker. Again, hard to describe. There's a sweetness. There's almost like a savory meatiness to it, like a brothy, heavy meatiness to it almost. Although that's not the right word. and very warm, very warming. This is, I think, for me, the tea with the strongest cha chi. When I drink it and I get this just, a lot of movement in my body, even just sitting here in a probably not a great position in terms of allowing chi to move in your body sitting, but it's in fact it's quite obvious for me to drink this one. There is a little bit of sourness in there, which reminds me slightly of like a xiaoguan, right? With that, the xiaofaguo, with a little bit of that, but it's definitely not strong. And if anything, it's just this little dash. It just kind of pops in and out, and it reminds you that that these teas have a lot of complexity, and that when we drink them over time, they're changing, we're changing, and it's so much fun to check in with these teas every once in a while. Sometimes I wish I had an extra lifetime where I could just, drink, these teas over and over and over again on a more regular basis than I'm able to sometimes. So I really do appreciate when people make reviews on the site or they share their impressions with me about the different teas. It's useful for me to by proxy be able to check in with these teas and make sure that they're headed in the right direction. Again, real dark, thick tea soup here, like all the other ones. Really, none of them are weak in any way. Almost like a umami seaweed umami kind of brine. Not. It's like taking the brine out of the salt out of the brininess. There's so much flavor there that you almost feel like there is like almost a salted character to it. Very subtle. You can see this tea is, I would say this tea is, the average fermentation level is about 50%. So it's a little bit, the tea that was blended with the Green Miracle is probably around 50, 60%. So you're looking at an average of around 45 to 50% fermentation. I'm going to do this one more time, but that about wraps it up. Again, just to go over what we drank, we have the Year of the Goat Monghai cake, 2015, and this is the Toji and the Chato. That's the first one. Then we drank the Green Miracle, which I think is kind of the cake that there's a little bit of buzz around. I mean, not that much buzz, like 10 people talking about it on Reddit here and there. But yeah, Green Miracle, that's a Yongda Wild Arbor Tippy, and 250 grams, $20. And the last one, Yanglohan, which is a 357 gram cake, and this is a blend of 2013 and 2015 tea, both Yongda teas. And this one, I believe, is $24 for 357 grams. So, none of these are expensive. They're young, but they're not so young that most people wouldn't enjoy drinking them. And even in a couple of years, 1 or 2 years from now, they're gonna really improve quickly as they lose their wet pile taste. So, I encourage you all to check them out. And maybe go on the site. I think some people have posted some reviews of these both on the US site and the .com site. The .com site probably has more reviews, but yeah, check them out. They're definitely worth looking into. And hope you enjoyed my rather lengthy tea session with them. feel free to send me an email, scott@yunnansourcing.com. You can add your comments in YouTube or questions, and I'll reply. Also, I'll probably post this on Reddit, so I'll be checking the comments there and questions if anybody has them. Thanks, and I hope to get back to making some more videos really soon. Sorry it's been so long. Take care, everyone. Bye.